Welcome back to Finding the Good. This is the first episode of 2022, and I am so excited to be opening it up with this powerhouse right here. Jessica has an incredible testimony that I cannot wait for everyone to hear. So, Jessica, Happy New Year. How are you?
Hey, Happy New Year. Woo. I'm awesome. I'm doing really good.
It's so good to see you and catch up. I actually met Jessica a few years back when she was at Shoreline in Dallas, and Pastor Daniel and Janelle connected us. And I think I was doing front of house maybe at the time, and I don't know if you were doing that there at Shoreline, and they connected us. And during that time, she shared some of her testimony with me and my family, and we were just so blown away by it. And so really excited to hear it today. But before we jump into it, why don't you go ahead and just tell everyone a little bit about yourself, what you're currently up to.
Yeah, awesome. Well, my name is Jessica Youngblood. We currently live in Texarkana, Texas. For those of y'all who don't know, it's a split city. So you go on one side of the road, you're in Arkansas, the other side, it's called State Line Avenue. And so it's a split city. And my husband and I started a church here 3 years ago. It's called Vessel Church. One of the hardest things we've done and one of the best things we've done. It's like the reward's great, but it's definitely a struggle. But we love it. We're called here. It's definitely a different culture, but we're here for the long haul. We have 4 children, busy life, sports, school, activities, dance.
Yeah. I love following you on social media and just seeing all the things you're up to with the church. And then I think you have like the bounce house too, right, that you do?
Yeah. So I love a good party. I love a good party. And so I just decided I would start renting out these beautiful bounce houses. They're not your typical fun looking bounce houses. They're solid white and solid black. And I love it so much.
Yeah,
I love making people happy.
Yeah, they're so cute. So like I mentioned, Jessica has an incredible testimony of how God delivered her from a drug addiction and just totally radically changed her life. And so I'm going to just go ahead and jump right into it and just ask you right off the bat, how did that drug addiction begin? How old were you? Maybe who introduced you to drugs? What was that season of life that you were in at the time?
Yeah, so I think we're all searching for something in life. And my mom left me when I was 8 months old. So I was always searching to fill a void, to be happy or to be accepted. I ended up having my son at 19 and he was 8 months old. I was just started partying hard and just fitting in. And these people had meth one day and I was like, I can do that, not knowing that 96% of women who try meth for the first time are addicted.
No.
The statistics are crazy. And so I just tried it for the first time and I loved it. Like, I didn't care that I was a mom. I didn't care that I had a son. I didn't care who I hurt, what I did. I just wanted the drugs from that point on. And it spiraled really quickly. Like, I'm an all or nothing kind of person. Like, I'm not going to do something half butt.
Yeah.
And that's even with drugs too. I'm going to be the best drug addict that somebody could be. And so I ended up dating the drug dealer and living with him, signing over custody of my son. We repeat cycles. I became the one person I didn't want to become, and that was my mom. But even through that, you learn forgiveness. So it was just a really crazy, I would say I did it really hard for 6 months and then I tried to detox. And I think that next year is what people don't talk about, is the relapse year. And you just keep falling and back into that vicious cycle until you don't anymore. There's all that last time. It's like a toddler learning to walk, and that one time they figure it out, they figure out life. And I think that that's what happened for me.
Yeah. And so what was your state of mind and how were you feeling at that time? And I asked that because when my dad was addicted to drugs, he was like a non-functioning drug addict, meaning like he couldn't hold a job. He was always paranoid. I think his choice of drug was cocaine, and so would stay in his room all day. But then I've known other people who did drugs and they were functioning and living life and it was fine. But for my dad, it was just like, just a total fall. And he told me once he got out of it, he was like, no one wants to be addicted to drugs. So he was just in a really low place. And so what was that experience like for
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, I love the way you put it, that he just wanted to stay in his room, because really a functioning drug addict is a lie. They only show you what they want you to see.
Mhm.
And so you were one-on-one with your father, so you knew what it was really like. That's mostly what it's like for a drug addict.
Oh,
And if they're painting a different picture, they're in denial. And even looking back, I was so addicted. I had craters all over my face. My face was sunk in. I didn't even know where I lived for 2 months because I just was stuck in this trailer room.
yeah.
The drug dealer would bring me drugs home and have sex, and he would get what he wanted and he would keep me high. And so the functionality is just perspective, but I was staying high, so I was happy per
Mhm.
se. You're not happy, you're really miserable. But I think the thing is, this is the thing, I would always say, I don't have a drug problem, even at my worst time, And that's the problem. We're in such a denial state. When you're in addiction, or when you're wanting to get away with anything,
Yeah.
you're telling yourself a great big old lie,
Mhm.
and that's the problem. The Bible says the truth is what sets us free, and it is the only thing. Until we come to the end of ourselves, we will stay in our addiction. And that's kind of where I was at. Like, I was fine if I was high, but as soon as I was coming down, I was hitting that pavement face first, like, I can't keep doing this over and over. But it's until you want to get better high. That's the reality. If you're high on a kite and still don't like that lifestyle, that's when it's time to do a change, because anybody can want to get sober if they're coming down off drugs. But it's really when you're really sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah. And so how did your family handle this drug addiction? Because again, like you said, I was one-on-one with my dad. And so it affected me and my mom and my sisters greatly. Like I remember being little and like hating drug addicts. I didn't know who the person was that was selling my dad the drugs, but I literally like hated them because I'm like, well, you're making a buck, our family is like really suffering. And so just curious as to like what your family was feeling during that time.
Yeah, so my son's dad was like, either you sign over these rights or I'm taking you to court, kind of thing, and I'm like, well, I don't want to go to court. I'm not a drug addict, but I don't want to go to court.
Mhm.
And so I signed over custody there. And the one person that mattered the most to me was my dad, because he had raised me and he had been through everything in my life. And so in that point, he's like, either you get your life together or I'm not talking to you ever again.
Hmm.
And, honestly, that's the best thing he ever could have told me, because literally, if you have your cake and eat it too, you don't see that there's a problem.
Mhm.
If my dad would continue to act like everything was fine, I would have never gotten better, because I would have thought everything was fine. And
Yeah.
it was like in that moment when he's like, I'm done, like, you got to figure it out. I was like, I can't lose the one person that means so much to me. And that was in that moment. I was like, I got to figure this out.
Yeah. And so let's talk about, you talked about relapsing. Could you just elaborate on that more to just like, because again, my dad's story is so similar to yours. And so that's why I keep referencing it. But man, he would go like months staying sober and it would all get our hopes up. And then like just in one split second, like he would relapse. And I never understood that because I'm like, if we're your family and you see how bad you're hurting us, like, why do you keep going back to the thing that would hurt your family? And so if you could kind of just talk about that relapse and, how that happened or maybe how you felt during those times.
Yeah, so I call it my Romans 7:15 year. I would do the things I didn't want to do, and I didn't do the things I wanted to do. Like,
Mm.
I wanted to stay sober, but I wouldn't be around people that were sober.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go to the club and drink, but I would go to the club and then I would drink. I didn't want to have sex with everybody, but I would go end up sleeping with everybody. And it's like, if you step your foot into that direction, God's not going to stop you from hitting it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, he may, whatever. I mean, there's probably some theological debate in that, but I'm just saying, like, if you are deliberately stepping foot in someone's house that has a line of coke or a line of meth or a crack pipe or anything right there and think you're not going to do it, you're lying to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
If you're sober from one drug or the next and you're still dabbling in the other drug, you're lying to yourself thinking that you're okay because you're playing with fire. Of course, you're going to get burned. And so there's a relapse always before the relapse.
Mm.
And it's the denial. It's the I can control this. It's the I'm just going to take one drink. One drink's fine. Society just cheers you on. Let's drink it up. Oh, it's fun. No, it's not fun.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a family like yours that was suffering on the other end of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you look back and if you talk to any addict, I bet there's a period of time where they know it's that slow fade. It's like, oh, I let that music creep back in. Oh, I let that feeling creep back in, or I let that person creep back in. And it's always just the creep back in. And that's where the spiral happens because we're all or nothing kind of people.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to dabble in it, I'm probably going to do a full relapse. How long that relapse takes is really how long the people around me act.
Mm.
You know?
Yeah. And what were those creepbacks for you?
Creepbacks for me was still going out clubbing. It was honestly probably not even clubbing. It was still the emptiness I hadn't filled.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can get sober all day long, but you're still empty. And like you can take away everything. But if you don't feel that kid's hands with something, they're still going to be grabbling for something that feels them. And that's what I was doing. I was searching, I was digging. I was like, help me find something that fills this void and make it better because I didn't like who I was. It all goes back to identity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that was the missing factor too. With my dad is, you know, he went to all the AA meetings and all the rehabs. And it's like, yeah, you have all these steps, but then at the end of the day, you're still left feeling, like you said, that void, just empty. And I always tell people like, it was only God that could.
Only you can't 12-step out of drug addiction.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to, you can, it's this self-guide kind of crap. I'm so frustrated with it. It's like, you can't replace God with a 12-step program.
No, not at all. And so for you, what was that turning point for you? What was that, you know, not going back and relapsing? Did you have like a low point and then you were just like, okay, or how did that play out?
Well, before I detoxed the first time, before my year of relapsing, the drug dealer pulled a knife on me. He was going to kill me. And I knew in that moment, either I was going to have to get better or I was going to die. It was one or the other. Like I had to make a choice. Well, then, you know, getting sober sucked and I didn't like it. So I kept relapsing. And so at the end of that year, I felt hopeless. Like the drugs ain't fixing me. The sobriety isn't fixing me. The beauty school I went to beauty school. The work isn't fixing me. One failed relationship after another, because we're always going to fill that void with something. And women, it's always probably going to be men.
Yeah.
And the men are the drug before the drugs. So that's a whole other podcast. But so then it was just like this hopeless thing of like, I might as well die. Like this isn't the life for me. Like it can never be different. I'm always going to be unhappy. And that night I went to work. I was just hopeless. And I went to work and I met somebody who shared Jesus with me. And, you know, from that moment on, I had hope. I had touched the hem of his garment. Like literally all it took was that one touch, and it took a surrendered heart.
Yeah.
And literally the scales and the veils and everything was torn and started just the chains started falling off, you know, the smoking, the drinking, the going out, the music, you know, I got to the root of the problem. The root of the problem was abandonment, rejection, emptiness, hopelessness, unforgiveness. Like there's all these things that were the root that all those other things don't get to. And so when I let Jesus turn me inside out, it was like from that moment on is when the transformation began.
How old were you when someone introduced you to Jesus? How long had it been that you were on drugs?
So I was 22 at the time. It was about a year and a half of drug use, but even before that, it was partying and just, promiscuity or whatever. And it was just a terrible lifestyle. But um, I would always search for God. Like I always knew he was there. Like I would go to these Baptist churches, not to diss Baptists, but I would walk an aisle because they told me to walk an aisle and they promised me walking that aisle and getting saved and getting baptized, my life was going to be different. No, I just wanted to kill myself even more
Wow.
because the God that they were serving was a hopeless God. He didn't save me.
Mm.
That aisle didn't save me.
Mm.
And I did that probably 8 or 10 times.
Wow.
And so when Jesus came into my heart, it was in a room by myself.
Mm.
He didn't need a program.
Yeah,
He just needs a heart.
that's
And
amazing.
that's where we got it wrong.
Wow. And so talk about how different your life is now in Jesus, because I follow you on Instagram. And so I do see all your beautiful children. And so I'm sure there was some restoration that took place there with your oldest son and his father.
Yeah. So he's 21 now. His
Mhm.
name's Ozzy. He is an amazing kid. He works really hard. He's just a great kid. But yeah, but I was always honest with my children.
Mm.
They always knew my story when they were age appropriate. I've always been honest with what they could do if they started drinking. I have an addictive personality. Like you could have that. And so it's just a choice. But, it's beautiful because God has allowed me to sow seeds that my kids will never have to reap the things that I reaped. Like they're never going to have to go through this searching. The searching has always been in their home.
Yeah.
And so I'm just, I've just been honest with them. So it's been beautiful that God has really given me, it's really a picture perfect, Instagram is a highlight reel, but really my kids are flourishing, man. I have a 17-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 5-year-old, and they're all just their own personalities, but living life big and happy and serving the church.
Mhm.
It's really beautiful. But it reminds me of the dark days when I had to make some hard decisions
Mhm.
then and to give up some friends and family to get the life that I have today.
Yeah, I love that. Jessica actually has a book, and we're going to chat about that later on. But I love that you use from meth to ministry.
Yeah.
And so, how did you get involved in ministry? Did you ever see yourself in ministry?
Oh yeah. From day one, I got this book by Joyce Meyer. It was called Battlefield of the Minds.
Hmm.
And from the first time reading that freaking 19 years ago, I'm so old.
No, you're not.
I'm old enough to be your mama. Reading Joyce's book, I finally found like somebody understood me. Like I finally found somebody got me, and just the things that she wrote in that book was such a revelation to me. We can have a relationship with God all we want, but sometimes we need practical steps that help us with the battle.
Mhm.
And the battle was here, like it was all here, and I needed that help. And her helping me showed me that that's what I wanted to do the rest of my life is
Mm.
help people and make a difference. And so, um, yeah, I wrote the book. I guess we can go into that later, but it's been an awesome journey. But it took me a long time to even write that because I never want my past to affect my today.
Mm. Mhm.
And so many times we want to do ministry and we want to be showing and we want to like show everybody what we can do, and we sacrifice our own family.
Yeah.
No, God has given me this blessing. This is my first ministry, and that's my husband and my kids.
I love that. I love that. So now being delivered and set free from drugs, how do you see the goodness of God coming out of that season?
Oh, every day. I see it every day when I get to go back into the pit of hell and pull other people out. And then I see them literally doing interventions with people all around the world.
Mm.
So the person that I walked into that I thought was dead from alcohol on the floor
Mhm.
is literally 9 years sober, and she's freaking doing interventions all over the world. It's the coolest thing ever. So
Yeah.
it's like the ripple effect of my life has been something so beautiful, and it's the goodness of God only. And I think that this is something God wanted me to talk about as well. And I think religion can't get us here.
Mhm. Mhm.
It is only Jesus. And I think that that's what we have to go back to, the basics.
Yeah.
And that's my heart's desire today. I want to still see the goodness of God that I met in that room, that he came in my heart 19 years ago. I want to see his goodness. I don't want to see a performance. I don't want to see a program. I don't want to see another church doing something cool I want to see Jesus's hand touch people.
Mm.
And that's what I want to see the rest of my life.
Yeah, I think now more than ever we need that.
We have to.
Now.
We
Yeah.
have to. It's not, the world is hurting. They're not looking for a quick fit. They may be looking for a quick fix, but they're looking for signs, wonders,
Mhm.
miracles. Like, they're looking for the fire and they don't know it,
Yeah.
but we're the fire carriers.
That's so good. I love it. My last question, for anyone who is struggling with addiction right now, what is some advice that you would give them if they're feeling just so low, maybe like they feel like they can't come to God because of their sin and their shame? What would you tell them?
Yeah, this is what's crazy. When you're in addiction, you can't see past it, and people perish from lack of vision.
Mm.
And if you can't see past your hell and your darkness to the light, you're never going to have hope.
Mhm.
And I would just tell them just to grab onto one hope,
Mm.
just take one step. That's all they have to do. Maybe that's not calling a drug dealer today. Maybe that's not going to the trap house tomorrow. Maybe that's taking a shower today. Maybe that's eating better today. Maybe that's just being honest that you are a drug addict. I would just tell them to take one step. And once they get that one step, momentum will happen in their walk, and they'll look up 19 years from now and have the life that they've only thought they could dream of, and they will be living it.
Mm.
But they never will live it if they don't take the first step. And the
Mhm.
first step's scary because they like being in their mess. It's
Yeah.
comfortable. We know what to expect.
Mhm.
And so I would just, tell them to pick up the Bible and get to reading.
Yeah.
He'll speak to them.
Well, Jessica, thank you so much for being on and sharing your story. I absolutely love it. And I don't know if it's, because I can relate to it, but it just speak volumes it doesn't matter where we are, what we're doing, the life we come from, like there is hope in Jesus and he can pull us out of whatever we find ourselves in. And so thank you so much. It was an honor. Honestly,
Thank you.
when I started finding the good back in 2020, I did think about you, and I was like, I know I want to have Jessica on, and so when I text you and you like responded right away, I was like so excited. I told my husband, I was like, oh my gosh, you texted back right away. I'm so excited to have her on. So thank you again so much.
It's an honor. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.